I've bled, I've sweat, I've cried. I've cried for this company. I've sacrificed more than you will ever know.
When somebody comes along and they really pretend that they care about you and they've got your best interests at heart and they're a good salesman, they're a good con man, they can really get their hooks in. And that is exactly what Joshua Fabia did to Diego Sanchez.
Surprise, surprise! The king is back!
From losing his prime to drugs and partying, to going bankrupt due to a Ponzi scheme and landing in the clutches of one of the biggest con artists in MMA history, Diego Sanchez's journey has been a roller coaster of courage, controversy, and a lost chance at becoming one of the GOATs of the game. The Nightmare still remains an OG and a legend. Born and raised in the rugged landscapes of Albuquerque to Mexican-American parents, Diego Sanchez was a fighter from the start, who rose to become a high school state champion in wrestling during his senior year. But his ambitions didn't stop at the edge of the wrestling mat. While holding down a demanding day job at UPS, Sanchez kicked off his mixed martial arts journey as a teenager. Fueled by his relentless grind, Diego was a natural, so he thrived in the chaos, eventually finding his way to the renowned Jackson Wink Gym in his hometown, where he sharpened his skills and mastered the art of combat while expertly balancing the pressures of a tough day job with his passion for prize fighting. Sanchez made his MMA debut in 2002 at Ring of Fire, stepping into the cage despite injuring his heel just the night before, but still winning by submission. The win netted him $600, but more importantly, it set the stage for a legendary career in combat. After a successful start to his career, Sanchez went on to bag a string of victories with his fists of fury as well as wrestling. In his third MMA fight, Sanchez choked out Shannon Rich after a dominant display on the mat. In his sixth professional fight, Sanchez snapped Rene Kronvold's arm. A few months later, it was John Kronk's turn to battle the kid they called the Nightmare, and the experience turned out to be every bit as terrifying as the nickname suggested. At least Kronk fought back, because Ray Elbay just got steamrolled. In just 2 years, Sanchez racked up 11 flawless victories, and his total domination in the lower leagues caught the UFC's eye, earning this rising prodigy a shot on the big stage through The Ultimate Fighter. Sanchez was selected for the inaugural season of Tough, where he quickly stood out, not just for his single-minded focus on becoming a UFC champion, but also for his quirky personality. Known as the oddball of the group, Diego was often seen practicing yoga at unusual times and trying to draw energy from lightning storms. Sanchez even dubbed himself a Zen master and had a war of words with Stephan Bonnar over asparagus. Though Sanchez's quirks set him apart in the house, he was all business inside the cage as he tore through the competition, smashing everyone in his path to the middleweight tournament final.
Every single fighter that I've gone in there with, it's been a message, and I don't expect Kenny Florian to be anything different but a message to Frank Trigg, Matt Hughes, even Evan Tanner, all the champs. I'm coming and I'm booming into this sport.
In the final of the tournament, Sanchez defeated Kenny Florian to cement his place in history as the first ever Ultimate Fighter.
I think the Ultimate Fighter changed Diego's life because all of a sudden he was just skyrocketed to the highest level of fame that you can get in MMA. I think that was a lot for him to handle at such a young age.
Sanchez's Ultimate Fighter victory earned him a contract, and he immediately dropped down to welterweight, dispatching Brian Gassaway in less than 2 rounds to make a stunning start to his UFC career. In his very next fight, he faced a major step up in competition in the form of Stockton's own Nick Diaz, and beat him by a decision. Sanchez's victory over Diaz was like a rocket launch for his career, catapulting him into the spotlight as one of the most exciting prospects in MMA, and he kept that momentum rolling with impressive wins over John Alessio and Karo Parisyan. Things went from good to better to absolutely fantastic for Sanchez when he brutally knocked out Joe Riggs with a knee strike. But as electrifying as that win was, it also planted the seeds of an impending downfall, hinting that his meteoric rise might soon hit some turbulence. Immediately after his win over Riggs, Sanchez popped for marijuana. His win wasn't overturned, but it was a serious asterisk on his record that raised eyebrows. Yet, Sanchez was a big enough star by then to earn a welterweight title eliminator against perennial contender Josh Koscheck. For the first time in his career, Sanchez met a wrestler who could not only match his skills on the mat, but actually outclass him. And that is exactly what happened when Sanchez was outplayed for his first career loss. A few months later, Sanchez dropped another one to wrestling ace John Fitch, and suddenly the hype died down a bit. Sanchez recalibrated immediately, dispatching David Bielkeeden in the first round, Luigi Fioravanti in the third, and securing a decision victory in his lightweight debut against Joe Stevenson to bounce back with 3 impressive wins. Riding high on a 3-fight win streak, Sanchez found himself in a lightweight title eliminator against Clay Guida, and the Nightmare won what after 3 rounds of a gruesome war that earned the Fight of the Year accolade. Inside the cage, he was a force of nature, vicious, relentless, and downright terrifying. But while he was wreaking havoc in the octagon, things were far murkier outside of it as drugs and wild partying began to cast long shadows over his career, pulling him away from the greatness he was destined for.
And I just got wild. I became a single bachelor, and I was drinking, I was smoking, had some bad influences around me, and my MMA went down.
The same fire that fueled his ferocity in the cage was now threatening to burn everything down outside of it. The UFC star hit rock bottom when he showed up to accept a Fight of the Year award for his war with Clay Guida, completely drunk. It was painfully obvious to everyone just how wasted Sanchez was during his acceptance speech.
I wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for God, so I give all the glory to God first and foremost. None of us would be anything if we didn't have God. So you know what? This goes to God. All right, that's what I'm about. I really do live my life on the fly.
Not just that, Sanchez was spending his hard-earned money as carelessly as he could, and all of that hurt him when he finally stepped out to battle for the UFC lightweight title against the prodigy, BJ Penn. But his downward slump was visible as the champ dominated him and won by a 5th-round stoppage. As if the sting of a title fight loss wasn't enough, Sanchez's troubles multiplied when he fell victim to an investment scam just a few months later, losing all of his hard-earned money. Soon, Sanchez started losing most of his sponsors, including his biggest backer, Bad Boy. For the UFC legend, that was just the tip of the iceberg because what followed was a downward spiral that cost him much more than a sponsorship deal. He lost focus, lost a custody battle when a paternity test revealed that the child he cherished wasn't his, and ultimately lost a grueling fight against drugs and alcohol. In the end, he lost the most important battle of all, the one for his own soul. From early 2010 to early 2013, Sanchez fought only 4 times as he battled with troubles outside of the cage, which badly dented his performance inside of the octagon. In his first fight following his loss to BJ Penn, Sanchez suffered another major setback when rising British prospect John Hathaway defeated him. Sanchez bounced back with a couple of wins against Paulo Thiago and Martin Kampmann, before suffering another loss to Jake Ellenberger. With inconsistent performances and troubles outside of the cage, Sanchez fell down the pecking order and soon lost his spot as a top contender in the UFC lightweight and middleweight divisions. Desperate for redemption, Sanchez turned to the divine, hoping that only a higher power could restore his shattered life. He regularly visited churches and gave sermons to the youth, juggling between the serenity of spirituality and the violent nature of prize fighting. But no matter what he did, the Sanchez of old was gone. From 2013 to 2019, Sanchez fought 12 times in the UFC, winning and losing 6 times, all while taking a ton of alleged brain damage that destroyed his marital life. In 2011, Sanchez had tied the knot with his high school sweetheart, Bernadette. For 8 blissful years, their marriage was a beacon of happiness. But as time passed, cracks began to show when Bernadette urged her husband to quit fighting because of the countless losses and physical damage. Yet Sanchez, having fought all his life, couldn't bring himself to let go. Faced with an impossible choice between his wife and his passion, he chose his first love, fighting.
I pushed my ex-wife away. She didn't want to see me get hurt. You know, I took it as, you're giving up on me. You don't believe in me. And we went our separate ways. So I was in a real rocky road.
Sanchez found himself plunging into a world of despair, but this time there was no one to lean on.
There was not much attention to me at Jackson Wink. I was basically just training myself, and this also was very disheartening for me because I knew I was coming to the end, and coming to the end and not having support from your wife and not having support from your team, you could see where I was at.
After the Mickey Gall fight, Diego took the decision to fire his longtime trainers at Jackson Wink.
Alone, lonely, and vulnerable, he fell prey to a serial manipulator, Joshua Fabia, a self-proclaimed self-awareness guru and a certified fake martial artist and con man who turned the nightmare into a laughingstock.
I am coming from the outside, completely. I never asked to be here. I never said I'm in your market, I want to get a MMA team.
If Joshua's such a rotten con man, how do you guys know that he doesn't have credentials in MMA? If he's a rotten con man that doesn't have credentials, you wouldn't know it because he would have conned you and lied and said that he did. We only know that he doesn't have credentials because he told the truth, which is not what a con man does. I think he's getting a bad rap. So there's this whole story unfolding. And I'm not sure that the story has a hero, but I'm not sure that it has a villain. I don't know enough. I thought he was an entertaining guy. And some of where he got a bad rap had to do with, is he qualified to be a trainer? And he answered that question. He was talking with Luke Thomas. And Luke said, well, let me just ask you plainly. If somebody said, what qualifications do you have to be a head corner man in the UFC? What would you say? And Joshua, a lot of people didn't like this answer, but I got it myself. He said, I didn't know there was qualifications.
Before Fabia became not only Sanchez's coach, but also his self-proclaimed life guru, he wasn't even a martial arts trainer. On his website, Fabia fancied himself a healer, who apparently healed his grandfather following a heart attack at just 9 years old. Fabia took the reins of Sanchez's fight training, and when videos of his methods surfaced, it became glaringly obvious that he was out of his depth. His so-called training included chasing students with a knife and absurd flow drills that seemed more like performance art than practical training. He even made Diego train blindfolded and had him go upside down and take shots to boost endurance. For Diego, who was dealing with serious mental health issues by then, Fabia's methods were revolutionary, but to the rest of the MMA world, it was bollocks. Needless to say, Sanchez lost every fight under the tutelage of his new coach, bar a disqualification win.
Tenure. So this is the dude that's telling him to be like Tyson.
He's being like water right now. You see that
doing?
slip? That slip?
Bro. Oh, this guy's amazing.
Dude,
what technique?
Here comes an elbow.
Oh, come on, son. Show me that. Oh, knocking people out.
Another one.
Bro. Oh, so good.
And on top of it, the criticism truly starts from Joe Rogan's dumbass talking out of turn, slandering somebody, doing malfeasance in the audience eyes and everything because he didn't do his due diligence to find out who I was.
Sanchez's first foray under Joshua Fabia's guidance came against the seasoned Michael Chiesa. From the opening bell, Chiesa took control, outclassing Sanchez in every aspect. By the end of the bout, Diego had managed fewer than 10 significant strikes. Sanchez snagged a win against Michel Pereira via disqualification thanks to illegal knees, but it was evident that his skills and conditioning were in sharp decline. While the MMA world ridiculed both Fabia and Sanchez, the fighter stubbornly clung to the charlatan as his cornerman. For his bout against Jake Matthews, Diego Sanchez appeared woefully out of shape, but it wasn't just his physical state that had fans worried. The pre-fight drama was equally concerning. Fabia, who was irate over accusations of being a fraud, created a scene, first targeting the UFC announcers team during a pre-fight meeting. Commentators Megan Olivier and Paul Felder weren't having any of Fabia's antics and quickly shut him down.
Hey, real quick, guys, just because you don't know who the hell I am, and you guys heard a lot of shit talk and all the good stuff, let's just cut the bullshit on the commentating. No low blows on this guy. No trying to turn the narrative that he's fucking up his legacy and all that weird stuff. Let's just keep it fair. You want some video? Contact me and I'll send it to you. You want to know what's going on? You want to actually talk to the people doing it? You might actually have to fucking talk to me. And coming at him like he's gonna know all this shit, he ain't. He hasn't been there the whole time. Google, go to YouTube, and just, real quick, put in my name and then see what's going on with the slander.
I've seen it.
Okay, so you've seen
They're
it.
They're all well aware of it.
Oh, so if you're well aware, why are we acting like this didn't happen? Why are you talking?
This is not about you. This is Diego's fighter meeting.
There's no reason.
But it has to do with him. That's my point.
Because you're disrespecting us, and we have other athletes that are waiting right now to be in this room to have the opportunity that Diego just had, and you're lecturing us on something that
nobody's lecturing. I'm trying to ask for a fair plight. If that's too much to ask for, clearly it's fine. I was just asking.
We are always giving a fair shot to everyone. Everyone.
I'm just saying, in this man's experience and what I've witnessed, some things don't seem quite level or fair or just. And when my name has been slandered, when this man's name, legacy, and his career that you so admire has been slandered, but that part doesn't matter, that's what I'm saying when I'm here helping at the end of his career. That's all. Okay, and I say this out of respect for this same man. That's why I'm willing to talk to you, even though nobody gives a shit. That's the point, man. Like, I care about him just the same as you say you care. And you're not respecting me for doing that.
Yeah, watch his last fight. You could see why that hurt his feelings a little bit, you know? So.
But on top of it,
that's all.
If the media is going to...
Totally. Listen, that's totally understandable. But delivering the message could be in a much We're not filming it to try to.
She's not saying the when. She's talking about the how.
Like, seriously, do you guys not see that? I'm just talking, and it's a problem. That's interesting.
Fabia then tried to confront Matt Serra over a radio interview, but after Serra stood his ground, the self-proclaimed MMA guru quickly backed out.
Brought up in the interview, and they're telling you, and they're asking you about me, and you're able to see my name. You know that they're talking about me. You're actually saying on a camera, like you're disdained with me so much you can't even say my name, bro. Like
Dude,
that's kind of cold. Like
I told you already, I don't know your name.
Okay,
what's your name again?
Joshua.
Joshua. Okay, good. Good. Yeah, school does something or other. I understand.
Okay.
Listen.
You can see how that right there is like a little like.
You know why?
You know what?
I don't give a fuck. I'm with my friends having breakfast. You trying to come over here and make some kind of grandstand about you bringing me up about? No, listen, bro. Okay. You want to talk? I'll talk. You're bringing up Michael Pereira. I think the guy's his stud.
Who? Piera?
Yeah, Pereira. Don't you gonna fix my fucking pronunciation shit?
No,
oh yeah,
I'm just in here.
And then you bring it up. Oh man, it's amazing how people don't bring up how Diego. You know, look at his fight with him. I thought that fight was shit. You know what? It was phenomenal. His fight with Carol Parisian.
Absolutely.
Fucking phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I like that's the Diego I think's a fucking beast. So Diego has my full respect. So before this is not going to get any better. I just do your thing. Good luck with you. I hope you make some money off Diego. Do what you got to do. And that's it, bro. Okay? When I listen, not my type of guy. Do your thing.
Dana White was pissed at Fabia as well, but the UFC brass mostly ignored his antics until he said something that raised eyebrows. Going into Diego's last promotional fight, where he was slated to fight fan favorite Donald Cerrone, Fabia stirred the pot by claiming that the UFC was knowingly setting Sanchez up in fights despite him having CTE. While Fabia's wild claims often drew laughs, this one caught the UFC's attention. The brass quickly saw through Fabia's tactics and recognized the underlying agenda. Fabia's plan was to sue the UFC on Diego Sanchez's behalf, aiming for a hefty settlement and pocketing a significant portion for himself.
I think the final straw kind of came in this all when Joshua Fabia was requesting medical records of Diego because they were trying to somehow build a case where they could sue the UFC on letting him fight whilst he had CTE or something like that. And they're like, well, hold on a minute. If you're even thinking about that, then he cannot fight. So essentially, this Fabia dickhead, this piece of garbage that was just trying to use him and take it for every last penny that he could and manipulate him, was just, and use him as a door to sue the UFC just for his own financial gain.
The UFC's head of talent relations, Hunter Campbell, immediately called Fabia, making it clear that if Diego's health was indeed compromised, the UFC would cancel the fight and release him.
The direct quote that I received was, you stated that the, quote, long-term effects of Diego being an MMA fighter were your basis for requesting it. Yeah. So I went through this with Mark Hunt, and here's the reality. If you're concerned or he's concerned that he's having negative effects, then we're not going to fight him. And I'm going to pull the fight right now. And we're going to call it a day. And we'll release him and he can go do something else with his life. Because I'm not putting anybody in that cage that doesn't feel 100% or thinks they're suffering from any medical issues.
Although Diego had passed all pre-fight medical tests, the UFC demanded that Fabia provide written confirmation of Sanchez's good health. Fabia refused to provide the written confirmation, resulting in the fight's cancellation and Diego Sanchez's release from the UFC. He was blackballed and barred from working with the UFC ever again.
I'm still open to meet with you, Dana. Be a man. Be a real boss. When I've bled, I've sweat, I've cried. I've cried for this company. I've sacrificed more than you will ever know. And you can't have a 45 minutes to meet with it?
After their chaotic partnership lasted over 2 years, no other organization was willing to touch Diego Sanchez. As his mental state deteriorated, Sanchez released a series of erratic videos, fueled by Fabia's encouragement. He claimed that the UFC was conspiring to kill him, as well as enforcing a media blackout.
I'm going to tell you guys both frankly right now, I'm fearful, man. I'm fearful for my life. I'm fearful that this company, this billion-dollar monopoly company worldwide is going to come after me. Something might happen to me in 2 years, maybe in a couple years. Maybe something happened. Maybe my truck maybe I wrecked my truck. Maybe something happened. Maybe Diego overdosed on some suicide. I don't know. but I would not put anything past the level of evil that is within this corporation.
Fabia's control over Sanchez was so absolute that Diego severed ties with all his family and friends.
He made some crazy claims that the UFC was trying to kill him, and he had all this dirt on Dana, and because he was being manipulated by this piece of shit Fabia, and then said the most inflammatory things about his boss. I called Dana first. He's lost it, and this Fabia guy has got his brain so twisted. And Dana, to his credit, it was one of the coolest conversations I've ever had. He said, when this Fabia guy leaves Diego penniless and broken, I'll be there to pick him back up. And his boss's reaction was, I love Diego. When this guy's done breaking him, I'll come back in and I'll help fix it. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. Literally right now, Dana is standing behind Diego, trying to help him.
In what sense?
I think he's got some lawyer shit going on that he's helping Diego out with, and just trying to keep food on his table.
And I don't even need to piggyback on that, because I've said so many times, and people just call me an arse licker and a company man, but that's the side of Dana White that people don't see. But even though we constantly tell these kind of behind the scenes stories, people aren't interested in that. They only want to hear negativity. They don't want to hear that's us trying to keep our jobs. That's us trying to make money and all the rest of it. Or how about for 1 second telling the truth and telling the shit that you really see?
Ultimately, after destroying his career, reputation, and personal relationships, Sanchez finally broke free from Fabia's grasp.
He wasn't aware he was being taken advantage of until Diego's family approached him and told him that Fabia had created an OnlyFans account for Diego and was posting content depicting Diego in a homosexual way. Now, this was the moment when Diego finally opened his eyes and decided to part ways with Joshua Fabia,
and opened a Pandora box of allegations against Fabia, who wanted to sue the UFC with the CTE thing.
Mentor was guiding me in what was best for him, and what was best for him was to try to figure out a way to get a settlement with the UFC. And so, he knew, that if there was a major settlement with the UFC, that, I was going to hook him up with half, because it was all his idea. It was all his plan. He was masterminding everything.
Sanchez chose not to publicly criticize Fabia, however, but Fabia took every opportunity to malign Sanchez, labeling him as a brain-damaged drug addict, a deadbeat dad, and mentally impaired.
And Diego has been an addict. He hadn't told anybody for the past 5 months. I was his sponsor, living with him, that I had to live there because he was broke and lost all his money and strung out on kratom and alcohol and 30 other substances, that he has sexual abuse issues. No, he didn't say any of that, man.
As Fabia's attacks became increasingly vicious, the MMA community finally tuned him out, and he disappeared from the spotlight.
This is all documented for your protection and for mine. Okay? So our relationship is now nil and void. I cannot, in good faith, no longer stand next to you or work for you when your own mother doesn't even know who I am. I gave you a chance to write a letter and tell her the truth. She doesn't even know who I am, can't say a positive word. That's your mother, and you think I'm going to be able to be vindicated. Okay, well, that part doesn't matter. I like I said, you want your freedom, you can have it. You're going to write a check to me and School of Self for $100,000, as I told you. This is the case when this happens because you've robbed me of everything. You did not pay me correctly. You told me all of this money is mine as I did all the work. And you're now on your own.
That's how he's talking to him, and the whole time. And Diego writes him a check for $100,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What kind of number?
The video is terrible.
What kind of number have you done on this guy for him to do that? Because make no mistake, Diego could beat the living shit out of this guy. And he ain't no special forces dickhead. He ain't no contract killer for the cartel. He's a prick that runs the School of Self-Awareness and hangs Diego upside down and kicks him in the head whilst filming it.
Conspiracy with Joshua Fabia. Like the most craziest ever. Like, no UFC career has ever ended the way my UFC career ended. And it is what it is. Stuff. That's Joshua Fabia and with the medicals and just pushing all the wrong buttons at the UFC. working his ass off to do whatever was best for his intentions. Me and Dana, we've been talking. We're cool. We mended, Dana told me, I got nothing but love and respect for you, Diego Sanchez. And that's, so in the future, I'd like to meet up with Dana and, give him a handshake and tell him thank you for everything that the UFC did for me, giving me all these great opportunities.
Post Fabia, Sanchez attempted to resurrect his career, but his efforts fell short. He lost a decision to Kevin Lee at Eagle FC and suffered a defeat against Austin Trout in a BKFC fight in Albuquerque. Despite cutting ties with Fabia, the ghost of their tumultuous relationship haunted Diego Sanchez for nearly 2 years. Sanchez accused Fabia of years of abuse, alleging that the so-called guru instilled fear for both his and his family's safety as their professional and personal bond unraveled.
Psychopath. That is basically the best way I could put it. You're dealing with a Charlie Manson type of mind where he's gone so far that it makes him unstable and dangerous. He went on to talk about how he claimed he was an ex-trained killer, ex-hitman, ex-contract worker for the cartels. And Sanchez says that he feared for the life of not only him, but his child and the mother of his child.
He even claimed to have filed a restraining order against Fabia, describing him as a trained killer, ex-hitman, and ex-contract worker for the cartels.
So for this guy to come out and say, look at what this guy does. Mr. Self-awareness, and all he does is comes out and starts talking shit about people. And now he's going to turn on Diego Sanchez and say bad stuff about Diego?
Immediately.
Listen, Diego Sanchez is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. He's a good person. Diego had this whole thing that he couldn't get a hold of me for 2 months. Everybody knows how I feel about the kids from the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. And because he's into some of that shit, whatever that shit is that Fabia dude is into, this whole thing made Diego look bad. That guy's such a fucking goofball. If you take anything that guy says serious, you should be beat with a stick, okay?
Yeah,
that guy is an absolute goofball. I think the kid is mentally ill.
Yeah, he is.
So
Diego Sanchez hasn't stepped back into the cage for a while now, as he's focusing instead on getting his life back on track.
Now that Fabia is gone, is there a chance that we might see Diego again, or would you give him another chance? He was just mixed up with the wrong guy. That's basically what happened.
I agree. Diego and I have always had a great relationship. I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
If you agreed to fight De La Hoya and the fight was going to happen, would you rather have Fabia in your corner or Jake Paul if you had to have one?
Jake Paul. Yeah, all day.
In early 2024, he married the ex-wife of the late boxing legend Johnny Tapia, who passed away in 2012. The newlyweds appear to have found stability and support in each other, and it seems Diego is finally on a path to living the life he truly deserves. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.